Don't hit me. Please, for God's sake, don't hit me, Jerry Smith begged. The man Jerry was pleading with was Ben Stillman, known as Big Ben on the street. The nickname was due to Ben's size. He was 6 feet 6 inches. If he'd had been shorter, he would have been called stocky. He weighed 270. Instead, he was considered muscular and not someone to mess with. Ben was holding Jerry off the ground with one of his big hands around the neck because his boss, Mo Farrell, had ordered him to collect the money owed to Mo by Jerry. Mo was, among other things, a loan shark. He was also the boss of a small-time criminal gang on the south side of St. Louis. His gang was involved in loan sharking, protection, and gambling. Mo didn't have the scones to get into drugs or the trade, but he wanted to become affiliated with the family that controlled the crime in the city. Mo was a wannabe wise guy. "Look, Jerry, just give me what you owe and I won't have to hit you," Ben said as he sort of shook Jerry like a dog playing tug-of-war with a piece of cloth. "But I don't have the full amount," Jerry complained. "Mo will just have to wait. Mo's not a very patient man. I don't think he'll like your answer." Ben sat Jerry back on the ground and shook his head. He really didn't want to rough up the little guy, but it was his job. After his parents died in a tenement fire, Mo had taken in the orphan Ben at age 14 and took care of him. He'd given the boy a place to live, food, and shelter. Ben had started working for Mo when he was 16, running betting slips from the neighborhood stores and parlors to Mo's office and other things that a young boy could be counted on to do. Ben was now 26 and had been working as an enforcer and collector in Mo's organization for over 4 years. Ben sometimes had to get physical with Mo's clients, but not often. His size was usually enough to convince the delinquents to pay up. When he did have to actually put hands on people, Ben tried to do little permanent damage. He'd several times refused to cut off a man's finger or ear or any number of other gruesome suggestions made by Mo. Although not pleased with Ben's refusals to go ballistic on customers, Mo had to admit that Ben's collection success rates were the best of the group. "How much you got, Jerry?" Ben asked. "I've got $2,000 and can get another 2 by next week." There was a small inkling of hope in his voice. "That will pay last week's and this week's interest," Ben stated. "What about the principal?" "I can't get that for another month." "Well, you know the drill," Ben said. "Your interest is $1,000 a week, and if you don't at least keep that paid, well, you and I will have another discussion. A very unpleasant one. Give me the money." He took the $2,000 from Jerry and walked to the door. Just as the little man started to breathe easier, Ben turned. "I'll be back next Friday for the $2,000 you talked about, but I'll only owe $1,000 interest by next week," Jerry protested. "Consider it a collection fee," Ben replied and almost stomped out of Jerry's shop. "Damn, I hate this job," Ben said aloud as he walked to his car. He continued his complaints silently. People like Jerry make the mistake of borrowing money from guys like Mo and don't think about the tremendously high interest that Mo requires. He snorted a laugh. Mo likes to call it the juice or vigorish because he thinks it makes him sound like a wise guy. "I hate hurting people. Hell, I hate scaring people. Wish Mo would let me work in one of his warehouses or his club, or even let me leave," he continued to himself. "Don't know where I'd go or what I'd do, but I'd find something." The warehouses and the club were Mo's half-hearted attempt to appear legitimate. Said warehouses were actually a profitable enterprise. They accepted, stored, and set up deliveries for any number of goods for many different businesses. The warehouses were also a good way to funnel stolen merchandise. The club, called Acquiescence, was what was referred to as a gentleman's club. That meant several young ladies would dance, barely clad and usually topless for the entertainment of the mostly male clientele. The ladies were also required to get up close and personal with the customers by doing lap dances. A job at Acquiescence was one step, sometimes a very small step, from the trade. Mo had taken over a neighborhood bar from a client that couldn't pay his debt. It was either give up the bar or go to the morgue. After watching a series on cable TV about a crime family back in New Jersey, Mo decided he wanted a club similar to the one pictured on the TV show. That's when Acquiescence was born. Mo was thinking about stepping into the world of the trade and thought the club would be a great place to show the wares, so to speak. Ben walked into the little coffee shop that Mo used as an office. He owned both the business and the building that stood on the border of the Hill. The Hill was a closely knit conclave on the Midwest side of St. Louis, made up of mostly Italian immigrants, their restaurants and businesses. Mo thought it put him closer to the big boys. He doesn't stop to think that the family that runs organized crime in St. Louis was bossed by a Swede named Gustafsson, Ben said to himself. Mo still believes in the old stereotype of Italian mobsters being in charge. Ben laughed as he walked over to the booth in the rear of the shop to face Mo. "Here's $2,000 from Jerry Smith," Ben said, and dropped the money on the table in front of his boss. He'll have another $2,000 next Friday. I told him the extra $1,000 was a collection fee for me having to come after him. Mo picked up the money, counted it, and handed Ben 5 $100 bills. Good job on the extra fee, Ben. When's the jamoke gonna have the principal? Mo thought talking like a gangster would help him get in with the big boys. He really sounds like a character in a bad movie, Ben thought, but he didn't dare say it out loud. He said it'd take another month, Ben answered, and then quickly continued before Mo could protest. Smith knows that the VIG is a $1,000 a week. He won't get behind again. You're too easy on them, Ben. I've never failed to get your money when you've sent me after it, Ben defended himself. It's not always necessary to break fingers, or arms or legs. Louie's a tougher collector than you, Mo said. Louie beat 2 guys to death last year, and crippled another one with that knife of his. The crippled guy is still in rehab, not able to work or make payments on what he owes you. Where's your money from those 3 deals? What did that cost you? $40,000. Got another job for you, if you want it, Mo said. He ignored Ben's statement and questions because he didn't like admitting that his pet pit bull had gone overboard and cost Mo money. On second thought, maybe I better send Louie. Ben waited for Mo to go on. He's too full of himself not to show me that he's the boss. Got a mortadella that owes me $10,000. Mortadella? Ben asked. Means loser, Mo answered, looking at Ben as if he were stupid. Okay, a guy owes you money. So what else is new? Ben remarked. Problem is this Peter Johnson died before I could collect. Did Louie go talk to him and cost you another 10 grand? Ben asked, not caring if it pissed off Mo. Careful, Ben. Don't be a smart man, Mo admonished, trying to look mean. You're not too big to be slapped down a notch. Mo took a sip of his coffee. The jab one has a daughter. Ben's first inclination was to ask Mo who he was going to use for the slapdown. Although one of the youngest of Mo's people, he was also one of the toughest when the need arose. Instead, he asked, jab one? Means a-hole. Anyway, he has a daughter. Mo tried to continue. Where do you come up with this Italian slang and names? You're Irish, for God's sake. Mo frowned and Ben held up his hand. What's the daughter got to do with her old man's debt? Quit interrupting. Ben nodded and Mo continued. Anyway, Mo stopped, looked at Ben to see if he was going to keep quiet and continued. I want her brought to me. Why? Ben couldn't help himself, he had to ask. Because I'm gonna offer her a chance to pay her father's debt. Mo looked pleased with himself. Actually, I'm gonna tell her, not ask, that she will work in my club until the debt is paid off. How old is she? She's legal, 22 or 23, so she can work in the club. Ben shook his head. What if she doesn't want to work in that kind of business? Loretta, that's her name by the way, won't have a choice, Mo replied. He leafed through a briefcase and handed Ben a piece of paper. This is the girl's address. Go pick her up and bring her to me over at Acquiescence this evening. Maybe she won't want to come. Persuade her, Ben. You're good at persuading people to do what I want. That's why I keep you around. Mo waved his hand to dismiss Ben. See you tonight, anytime after 8. Ben drove to the girl's address and waited for her to come home from her evening classes at Forest Park Community College. A little investigation had told him that Loretta Johnson was a substitute teacher and was working to get her accreditation as a full-time teacher. When the young woman got out of her little subcompact car at 8 p.m. and walked to her door, Ben got his first look at her and thought, just the kind of girl that will be a big hit at the club. She's tall, must be 5 feet 9 inches, and she's got that healthy, voluptuous type body that makes no mistake that she's all woman. No stick figure, runway model type here. That long blonde hair and big brown eyes don't hurt either. Ben finished his thought. I don't like this one little bit, he said to himself, and he walked to intercept the girl. Loretta Johnson? Ben asked as he got close to her. Loretta turned and looked at the hulk of a man talking to her. I don't know you, she responded and quickened her pace toward her door. My boss, Mo Farrell, wants to see you, Ben said and stepped between the girl and her door. I don't know him either. Please leave me alone, Loretta replied. Miss Johnson, you don't have a lot of choice in the matter. You need to come with me. Before he could say any more, Loretta pulled a spray canister from her purse and pointed it at Ben. He moved with a speed that surprised most because of his size and grabbed the canister from her. Looking down at it, he shook his head. Were you going to spray me with mace? He asked and smiled at her. Ben was impressed that the girl was willing to fight to protect herself. Yes, I was, and I'll cut you if you don't leave me alone. Loretta threatened Ben, holding a box cutter with the blade extended. Miss Johnson, I'm sorry, but you're going with me. Even if I'm bleeding, you're still going with me. Ben took a step back away from her and added, I promise that nothing will happen to you. Who is this Mo Farrell, and why does he want to see me? Your father owed him a lot of money, $10,000, when he passed away, and now Mo wants you to pay the debt. I don't have that kind of money. I'm a substitute teacher and a college student. I guess that's what Mo wants to talk to you about, Ben told her. The more I think about it, the more I'm not real happy with my part in this, Ben thought. Loretta shook her head, both in denial and refusal. I'm not going. Leave me alone or I'll call the cops, she said as she took out her cell phone. Ben sighed, reached out, and took the phone away from her. That wouldn't be a good thing, Miss Johnson. And yes, you are coming with me. You can walk or I'll carry you, but you are coming with me. The girl's shoulders slumped. She knew she had no chance against this giant of a man. Nodding her head, she let him lead her to his car. Once in the car, she leaned against the passenger door, trying to stay as far away from Ben as she could. Loretta stared at the floorboard until the car stopped. She raised her head and looked at the building where they had stopped. But this is Loretta stuttered. A gentleman's club is the most genteel name, Miss Johnson, Ben replied. He saw the look on her face and thought I'd better prepare her for her meeting with Mo. I think Mo's plan is for you working here until you pay off your father's debt and the VIG. VIG. It's the interest on the loan your father took from Mo. Ben hesitated and added, the VIG is a $1,000 a week. Right now that amounts to another $3,000. Mo looked up as Ben escorted Loretta into his office. Even with the door closed, you could feel the bass vibration from the driving music from the club. There was a large two-way window that allowed whoever was in the office to watch what was going on out in the club. Loretta looked up just in time to see a dancer do a split while hanging upside down holding onto a brass pole. Her rear end faced the window, and the thong she wore did little to cover her butt. Miss Johnson, have a seat, Mo said and motioned to a chair in front of his desk. When Loretta still stood there, he almost shouted, sit down. She sat down and turned her attention from the dancer to Mo. Maybe you better study that girl, Miss Johnson. That's going to be your job. Well, at least until you pay off your father's debt. Are you crazy? I won't do that. I can't do that. Oh, you'll do it and more, Mo said in a menacing voice. Or else what? I'll have Louis here persuade you to see things my way, Mo said, motioning toward the other man in the room. Louis likes that sort of thing. Loretta saw a man step out of the shadows toward where she was sitting and shuddered at his appearance. She could almost feel a wave of anticipation rolling off him. Louis was a direct opposite of Ben. Where Ben was tall at 6 feet 6 inches and muscular, Louis barely topped 5 feet 10 inches and was thin and angular. Although Ben moved extremely fast when called for, he was a hulking presence, like a bear. Louis was almost gaunt with very quick, jerky movements, like a weasel. Ben had dark hair, worn close cropped to 1.5 inches, and his eyes were a deep dark brown. His tan complexion just added to his resemblance to a big Kodiak bear. The only mar to his rugged good looks was a 3-inch scar over his right eye, the result of an altercation between Ben and one of Mo's unhappy clients. Louis's hair was so blonde it looked white, and in spite of a receding hairline it was worn long, hanging down his back in a ponytail. His very pale, white complexion coupled with the hair made him look like an albino, a resemblance that was proven when he removed his sunglasses and stared at Loretta with red-colored eyes. He too had a scar, but his ran across his neck, almost from ear to ear. That scar was a result of a knife fight when Louis was much younger. He'd killed his opponent and still carried the knife he'd take out of the dead man's hand. Hello, Miss Johnson, Louis greeted the girl with a high-pitched, scratchy voice. He bowed, pulled a flick knife, the souvenir from his youth, out of his rear pocket and started cleaning his fingernails. I look forward to working with you. You'll begin tomorrow night. As a dancer to start with, Mo ordered the girl. What do you mean to start with? Loretta asked. There are other things you can do to earn money. You mean become a hooker? Hooker is such an ugly word, Mo replied. I like to call my girls escorts. He saw the stubborn look on Loretta's face. It's your choice, Miss Johnson. But either way you will work for me until your father's debt is paid. Mo pushed a button on the intercom. Summer, bring some costumes into my office, about a size 10, I think. He looked at Loretta and she nodded. How long do I have to work for you? Until the debt is paid, including the juice, Mo answered. The loan was for $10,000. The weekly VIG is $1,000. I expect the VIG and at least $500 toward the principal each week. That's $1,500 a week, Loretta protested. I can't make that kind of money dancing. Then you'll just have to work longer or become more than a dancer. Any week you don't pay the VIG, it will be added to the debt. Mo sat back in his office chair. And don't even think about the cops. Louis doesn't like cops. Do you, Louis? Louis gave Loretta an evil grin. shook his head, and flicked open his knife again. No, I surely don't. They make me all crazy and stuff. A short, almost young woman came into the office carrying a small duffel bag. Mo motioned to Loretta, and the girl put the bag on the floor next to her chair. Summer, this is Loretta, Mo said. She starts dancing tomorrow night. Show her the ropes. You know where she can dress, how much makeup, and how to treat the customers. And think of a stage name for her. Loretta isn't sexy enough. Turning back to Loretta, he added, Today is Thursday. I'll give you the weekend to get used to your new position. Hell, I'll even cut this week's vig just to show that I'm not such a bad guy. See you tomorrow night at 6. Mo pulled a credit card out of his wallet and handed it to Ben. Take her shopping tomorrow and get her some more clothes. You know the type she needs. Don't worry, Miss Johnson. I'll foot the bill for them. After all, you'll be using them to make me money. Mo opened a ledger on his desk, waving Loretta out of the office. Ben and Summer followed her. How about Tawny? Summer asked Loretta as they left the office. What? Tawny? You know, for a stage name, Summer answered. With all that blonde hair and those big eyes, it fits. Seeing the troubled look on Loretta's face, Summer's eyes filled with compassion. She had once been where Loretta was now, a good woman forced into a type of life she didn't want. Summer continued, Don't worry, honey. It's not all bad. You can make some really good money, and most of the men aren't really that bad. Most are just lonely. Ben waved over a taxi and handed the shocked girl into the back seat. I'll pick you up at 10 a.m. to go shopping. Be ready to go, he said. He handed the cab driver a 50. Take her home and help her with her bag. Ben returned to Mo's office. How about cutting her some slack? Ben asked. His voice was close to a challenge. Why should I? Mo replied. Come on, Mo. It's not her fault her father was stupid. Cut the vig and let her pay off the loan. Ben's voice was milder. I think she can make a lot of money for me. Not for long. She'll make enough to pay you off in 3 or 4 months, Ben argued. Not with all the charges she'll have to pay to work here, Mo said with a grin. You know, shift fees, dressing room rental, and payment for the drugs she uses. She doesn't do drugs, Ben protested. She will before the month is over. We'll slip her a little, just to help her out, you understand. And then she'll go into escort work to make more money. You're an a-hole, Mo, Ben said angrily. Louis doesn't like it when people call me names, Ben, Mo cautioned. Louis stepped around the desk and smiled at Ben. I'd hate to have him get upset with you. Ben's smile made him look like a big bear even more. He motioned to Louis, Come on, boy, you're an a-hole too. Louis took a step toward Ben as he opened the knife again. Louis, behave yourself, Mo said. Ben, just do your job and let me worry about Miss Johnson. Ben shook his head and left. He knew arguing with Mo was a waste of time. The guy thinks he's a real hood. Now that he's getting into the trade, Ben thought, maybe it's time I find another line of work. Loretta answered Ben's knock at 10 a.m. on the dot. He motioned for her to follow him to his car. Loretta was wearing a sundress that buttoned down the front and sandals. You look nice, Ben offered as he started the car. I thought it would be easier to try on things wearing a dress than with jeans, Loretta answered. Her voice was soft and sad. You won't be trying on clothes and such this morning, Ben said. Loretta gave him a puzzled look. You have any money put aside? What? Money? Do you have any saved? I've got about $2,000 in an account and another $500 in my checking account. Why? Mo said I didn't have to start paying him until next week. Which bank? Ben asked. Tower Grove National. Good. Mo uses the same bank. Ben saw the puzzled look from Loretta and smiled. You're not going to go to work for Mo. We're going to hit the bricks. What? You and I are going to your bank and withdraw all your money. While I'm there, I'll get a cash advance on Mo's credit card and then we'll disappear. Ben smiled and added, I've already got all my money. So between us, we should be able to hide until I can figure something out. You're going to help me? Loretta's voice had life in it for the first time since the meeting with Mo. Why? Loretta, I'm a lot of things, hell most of it bad, but I can't and won't be a part of turning you into a 304. You know that's Mo's plan for you, don't you? Anyway, I'll help you get away from him. Now let's go back into your apartment and put together a bag for you. Then we'll hit the bank and get the hell out of Dodge. As Loretta packed, much too much to Ben's way of thinking, she asked, But won't he be upset with you helping me? Upset? Hell, he'll be so pissed off he might have a stroke. At least we can hope so. Loretta looked at Ben with a new hope. He'll punish you for double-crossing him, won't he? It was a statement more than a question. He'll see it as more than a double cross. He'll see it as a cheating. Ben quickly explained how Mo took him in and took care of him. He shook himself. We won't use credit cards because they can be traced. We'll have to live off the grid. Mo doesn't know about this car, so he can't track us that way. The car was a nondescript Ford Taurus, like thousands of others on the road. But Ben had put a new engine, new suspension, and made it the most powerful Tarsus on the road. It would take a very powerful vehicle to keep up with it. Ben's Super Taurus pulled into the parking lot of the bank. You go clean out your accounts. Leave a few bucks in there, so there's no report of them being closed. Loretta gave Ben a questioning look. Mo's got an in at this bank, and we don't want him knowing that you're running before we get a chance to put some miles between us. I'll go see Brinks, the bank manager, and get as much money on Mo's credit card as I can. Won't he question you using Mo's card? Nah. When Mo needs a little extra cash, he sends me to get it. I'll get $20,000 or so. Mo does it all the time. Brinks will separate the amount out over 3 or 4 transactions and spread them out over 3 or 4 weeks. He won't suspect a thing. Why do that? Any transaction for $10,000 or more is reported to the feds, Homeland Security, and bank regulators. This way we won't run into that limit. I'd like to get more, but I don't want to do anything unusual. Can't take that chance. When I'm done, I'll meet you in the lobby. Are you sure the manager will help you? Yeah. Brinks embezzled some money from a couple of accounts and lost it in the stock market. If the info got out, Brinks would be ruined. His job and his reputation would be trashed. He'd also go to jail. He came to Mo and Mo paid it back. Now Mo owns Brinks and just about runs the bank. How much this time? Brinks asked after greeting Ben. He answered, 20. Mo's got a deal coming up and he needs cash. In less than 15 minutes, the transaction was completed. Ben put the 4 stacks of $100 bills in his jacket pockets. Each banded stack contained 50 bills, totaling $5,000. Ben had requested this division of the money to make it easier to carry. As Ben left Brinks' desk, the bank manager watched him walk away. He saw Ben join a pretty young lady in the lobby and leave the bank. As Ben had said, this transaction wasn't unusual, but Mo normally called and set it up before Ben got there. Maybe I ought to call Mo, Brinks thought. He picked up the phone and punched in Mo's private line. Hey Mo, it's Tony Brinks. I gave Ben the money you requested and wanted to know if there is anything else I can do for you. What money? Mo asked. The $20,000 you sent Ben for, Brinks answered. Then worried he'd done something wrong, he asked, Isn't that what you wanted? Oh yeah, my mind was on something else, Mo replied. Thanks Tony, talk to you later. Now why would Ben get cash without my say-so? Mo asked himself. He was sitting in the coffee shop and he thought for a couple of minutes. He called Ben's home and then his cell and didn't get an answer. Louie, get your butt in here, he yelled. Louie came out of a dark back office. Get over to Ben's and see why he's not answering his phone. When you see him, tell him to get his butt in here. Because of Ben's recent mood and his bit of disrespect, Mo had a bad feeling. Less than an hour later, Louie called. Ben's split, he told his boss. His car is still here, but some of his clothes are gone and so is his shaving stuff. That .357 cannon he keeps in his desk is gone too. Son of a bitch, Mo responded. Get over to that Johnson girl's place and see if he's there. Call me from there. The next call was more of the same. Broad's gone too. Dresser drawers left open with nothing much in them. Empty hangers in the closet. Looks like someone took off in a hurry. Get hold of the guys and tell them to find Ben and that broad, Mo ordered. His voice was angry. Call me when you find them. Nice town, Ben thought. He was standing on the porch of a rental cabin on the outskirts of Poplar Bluff. He and Loretta had been there for a week. They'd made the 160-mile drive from St. Louis in a little over 5 hours. Ben had been careful not to break any speed limits, but he wasted little time getting out of St. Louis. Poplar Bluff, known to its residents and people in nearby communities as the Bluff, was a large town or a small city, depending on who was talking, with a population of about 17,000. It was close to a recreational lake, Lake Wapapello, which brought thousands of tourists through the community. There were several small industries, but it was mostly a farming and tourism community. Big enough to have all you need, but still has the small town feel, Ben continued his thought. I wouldn't mind staying here for a while. You can come in now, Loretta called from inside the cabin. The cabin had one large room that doubled as a bedroom and living space. The bathroom was small and didn't give you much room for anything but the necessities. Ben had stepped outside while Loretta did whatever it was that women do to get ready. When he entered the cabin, Loretta had her back to the door. She turned around and started buttoning the man's type shirt she was wearing. Ben could see Loretta's toned, tan stomach. Oh, sorry. I thought you said to come in, Ben stammered. I did. Seeing the big man turn red, she laughed. Come on, Ben. You'd see more of me at the pool or beach. Yeah, but we ain't at the beach. You shouldn't tease me like that, Retta, Ben said with a grin. Retta? I like that, she said smiling. But you wouldn't hurt me. You're just a big teddy bear. Even teddy bears have teeth and know how to bite a little girl. They both laughed and walked to a local family-owned barbecue restaurant. Can we go to a club tonight? Retta asked. Maybe get a drink and dance a little. I don't dance, Ben replied, shaking his head. Retta pursed her lips in a pout.
Okay, Ben. Relented.
We'll go for a couple of drinks and one dance, but only one. After dinner, they went to the lounge at the Holiday Inn. Ben didn't feel like braving the probably boisterous crowd at one of the local bars. Ben and Retta were sitting in a booth where Ben was recovering from the 6 dances he'd just done. The effect that Retta had on him when he held her close bothered him. Last thing we need is to get involved with each other, Ben thought. I don't know where I'm going to end up or what I'm going to do. Mo won't let it go. He'll have Louie and others looking for me until he catches me. Or I might get tired of running and look up Mo and settle things. Either way, I'm not a good prospect for a woman. Besides, she probably doesn't think of me that way. I'm just the guy that's helping her in a bad situation. Ben looked up as someone entered the lounge and stiffened. He noticed a man who could have been a movie extra playing a mob guy. The man had a swarthy complexion with dark, oily, slicked back hair. His suit wasn't in the best fashion. It was a cheap knockoff of in a shiny sharkskin material. Looks like what he is, Ben thought. I don't doubt he works for Mo, but I don't know him. He must be hired muscle. Ben turned his back to the entrance and pulled Retta in close so she was hidden from the man's view. Don't look now, but I think Mo has found us, Ben told her. When the wannabe mobster turned his back and walked toward the bar, Ben pulled Retta out of the booth and escaped through another entrance to the lounge. Does that scary-looking guy work for Mo? Retta asked. And how did they find us? Yeah, I'm sure he's looking for us. Mo probably checked the airlines and bus stations and didn't find us, so he sent word to all the towns of any size to keep an eye out for us. His gang or network, or whatever you call it, is that big? No, he can barely hold on to his neighborhood in the city, but he has contacts from all over who owe him favors. That's probably what that guy is. Ben hurried Retta back to their cabin. Makes no difference, we have to move. Get packed. As Retta packed her things, Ben put on a shoulder holster holding his Dan Wesson .357 revolver. It was one of the few things his father had left him, and besides being a deadly weapon, it had a sentimental value to him. He also put a Colt 1911 .45 pistol inside the waistband of his jeans in the small of his back. Walking to their car, Ben saw another vehicle pull to a skidding stop about 50 feet away. 2 men jumped out and snapped off shots at Ben and Retta. Before they could fire again, Ben pulled the .357 and fired at one of the men, who was hiding behind the open car door. That man fell to the ground, out of the firefight. The other one dove behind his car, trying to make himself as small a target as possible. Ben fired 2 shots through the other car's radiator and into the engine block. He pushed the shocked Retta into the Taurus and, throwing gravel from the tires, tore out of the cabin's parking area. He constantly checked the review mirror for pursuit. 30 minutes later, driving through the heavily wooden countryside, Ben took a small side road and pulled to a stop. Why are we stopping? Retta asked in surprise. Think I'd better do something about the bleeding, Ben answered and pointed to his side and his blood-stained shirt. Those guys were really good, or they got lucky. Either way, I got hit. Retta took over and made him get out of the car. Using the headlights so she could see, she made Ben take off his shirt and examine the wound. Looks a lot worse than it is, Retta thought. It just creased his side. She washed the injury with bottled water and then used one of her t-shirts to bandage the wound. That'll hold it until we can get to a drugstore, Ben said. They got back into the car and drove almost due west. Later that evening, they ended up at an older place named Smalley's in the small town of Van Buren. The small motel wasn't of the strip-type places and rented cabins for those who wanted more privacy by the night, the week, or the month. Retta made Ben lay down on the bed and, in spite of his protest, made preparations to walk to the drugstore they'd seen about 2 blocks away on the main street. Before she left, she pushed her long blonde hair up under a baseball cap, put on one of Ben's jackets, and donned sunglasses. The jacket hung on her, disguising her body, and with her hair covered by the cap, it was hard to see that she was a woman. The drugstore was a typical small-town, mom-and-pop business. It had something Retta had never seen in person, an actual soda fountain which served ice cream sundaes, malts, and ice cream sodas. She smiled as she picked out the things she needed to treat Ben's injury. After paying for the medical supplies, Retta chuckled and walked over to the soda counter. She bought 2 banana splits to go and returned to Smalley's. If you're a good boy, when I take care of your wound, I'll give you this banana split, Retta told Ben with a big smile. If not, I'll just have to eat both of them. Yes, ma'am, I'll be good, Ben replied, returning her smile. As they were eating the ice cream, Retta asked, how did those men find us? Just because Mo is a sleazebag, don't think he's stupid. He probably put the word out to contacts in every major city and town in Missouri and Illinois. Ben shook his head. It was just our bad luck to be spotted at the lounge. What do we do now? We'll lay low here for a few days if we can. Van Buren is too small for Mo to have anyone here. Those guys saw the car and maybe got the license number, so I'll have to get rid of it. Ben saw the worried look on Retta's face. Don't get all freaked out, we'll be fine. Now let me finish my ice cream. The next morning, Ben drove the tourist to the one gas station in town. He'd noticed 4 or 5 vehicles parked close to the main street with "for sale" signs in their windows. Ben walked around the cars and stopped in front of an older Chevy pickup. The truck's body had a few dents and scrapes, but there was no rust. A man, almost as big as Ben, came out of the gas station. Howdy, I'm Red Sinclair, he said. That truck don't look like much, but she's a real runner. Ben motioned toward the hood and opened it when Red nodded. Inside was an engine that hadn't come with the truck from the factory. To Ben's practiced eye, he could tell by the big V8 that the truck was a real sleeper. Can I start it? Ben asked. Red nodded again and Ben started the truck. The roar of the powerful engine told Ben that he was right. This wasn't a farm truck. Truck belonged to the Chilton boy, Tommy, for he went off to Iraq, Red explained. He put a lot of time and money into that truck. New engine, transmission, suspension, and such. Planned on doing the body and interior when he came back. Red sighed and stared at the truck for a few seconds. Boy never made it home. Heard tell it was what they call an IED, improvised explosive device. Got the Hummer he was riding in. Tommy's dad gave me the truck to sell. Said having it around the house reminded him that his boy wasn't coming home. I'm interested, Mr. Sinclair, Ben said. But I've got that car over there. I need to get factored into the deal. Red's good enough. Let's take a look at your Ford. Maybe we can do a little horse trading. Red walked to the Taurus, reached into the window, pulled the hood release, and opened the hood. Ben started the engine and joined Red at the front of the car. From the looks and sound of it, reckon you know a bit about engines and such yourself, Red offered. Ben nodded. Okay, son, what's the story? You want to trade a 3-year-old Ford with a souped-up motor and low mileage for a 10-year-old truck. Don't make good sense. Ben looked hard at Red for about 10 seconds. One of Ben's talents was being able to read people. It came in handy when he was collecting for Mo. He decided Red Sinclair was a good man and made a decision. Mr. Sinclair, or Red, it's like this, Ben said, explained the situation. After 5 minutes of talking, Ben said, you can make a lot of money by calling Mo Farrell in St. Louis and telling him where we are. Red grinned. I run my little station here, close it down to go fishing or hunting when I want to, and if the wife wants to go to the bluff or up to St. Louis, we just go. Got about everything I need or want. Blood money won't make my life any better. Let's step inside and see if we can't make a deal. Motioning Ben to a chair next to a beat-up old desk, Red poured Ben a cup of coffee. Now what did y'all have in mind? Red asked, sitting across from Ben. Don't really know, Mr. Sinclair, Red. It just came to mind that we need to change cars. What's Mr. Chilton asking for the truck? That Chevy has a blue book value of about $6,800, but Mr. Chilton said to get rid of it quick. Red paused and said, reckon he'd let it go for $6,000. That's a good price considering all the work that's been done on it. Sounds fair, but I've still got my Ford to get rid of. Ben thought for a few seconds. Tell you what I'm going to do. Wait, let me button down my hip pocket. When a man says that, he's usually going to try getting into my wallet, Red replied with a big grin. Not this time, Red. My Taurus's blue book is about $18,000. That's not counting all the work on the drivetrain and suspension I've done. Give me the truck and $4,000 and we'll both make out. You might have to take it to someplace like Poplar Bluff, but I'm pretty sure you can get $14,000 to $15,000 for my Ford. Come on, we'll do some paperwork and you can take the truck. Ben hesitated and Red added, I'll probably forget to send in the paperwork for the new registrations for 10 days to 2 weeks. I'm getting real forgetful in my old age. Ben grinned and went to his car to get the title and registration. 10 minutes later, he drove his new, old truck back to Smalley's motel. That deal cost me about $8,000, Ben thought. But most guys won't look for us in a truck. Ben had another surprise waiting when he entered his cabin. Apparently, Retta had bought more than bandages and ice cream at the little drugstore. Her hair was now a deep auburn and she'd cut it in a short pixie style. Those men are looking for a large man and a woman with long blonde hair, Retta said, smiling at Ben's surprised look. We can't do anything about your size, but I did something about the long blonde hair. She put on a pair of horned-rimmed glasses and asked, what do you think? Ben chuckled. Smart thinking, Retta. I should have thought of that. I'm going to miss being a blonde, though, she replied. You'd look good with a bald head, Ben muttered under his breath. He was beginning to develop feelings for this brave young woman he'd decided to help. She's never once said, "Oh, poor me," or bitched about running from town to town. That's a sweet thing to say, Ben, Retta responded to Ben's soft statement. Well, it's the truth. Anyway, we've got a new ride, so we'll hit the road in a few days. No need to stay in one place too long. Not that I'm not grateful for your help and everything, but how long do you think we'll have to run? Retta's smile had disappeared. Don't really know just yet, Ben admitted. When I decided to take you and run, that's all I'd planned. Retta's smile returned. It's okay. I'm seeing a lot of the country that I've never seen before. Ben walked across the road to the Big Spring Cafe to get breakfast the next morning. Retta was still sleeping. As he finished his very large breakfast, Red Sinclair sat down at his table. Howdy, he said and reached across and took a piece of Ben's toast. Y'all sure do put the food away. Course I don't do too bad myself, he said and patted his large stomach. Help yourself to some toast or something, Ben grinned at the big man. Was talking to the county sheriff this morning, Red mentioned as he put some jelly on the toast. Said the police chief over to Poplar Bluff called and said to look out for a big man and a blonde woman. Chief said he'd received a bolo about these two. Seems they stole some money from a St. Louis businessman named Mo Farrell. He was told they were driving a white Ford Taurus. Said this businessman in St. Louis was offering a big reward to find them. Red caged a cup of coffee from a passing waitress. I told Milt, that's the sheriff. He'd be better off forgetting about that call. He finished his coffee and stood. Course that don't mean nothing to you, but I thought it was a mite interesting. See y'all. Thanks, Red. For what? Don't have nothing to do with anyone I know. Red leaned closer to Ben. If and I was that couple, I'd head down to Arkansas. Lots of country to get lost in down there. He turned and left the cafe with a wave. Pack up, Ben ordered when he returned to the cabin. Retta was just finishing getting ready for the day. He explained what Red had told him. Seems Mo's brought some trumped-up charges against us, and he's got the police working for him. Ben grabbed their suitcases, threw them in the bed of the truck, but stopped before he and Retta got in. Ben looked at Retta for several seconds. Mo's boys won't recognize you now, what with your dark, short hair. The only thing that ties you into all this is me. I think you should take a bus out of here. I'll lead anyone looking for us in another direction. He pulled 3 packs of money out of his jacket. This is $15,000. It should get you someplace safe and give enough for a fresh start. But you're still recovering from your wound, Retta protested. I'm healed enough to drive, Ben replied. He sighed and said, don't you understand? I'm the one that stands out. Without me around, you can slip past them and be free. But I don't want to be free, Retta said. Not if it means being free of you too. Can I stay? Ever seen Arkansas? He asked and motioned Retta into the truck. There's another one, Ben thought. Why do all those guys wear shark skin suits and bad ones at that? Most suits are shark skin, but they cost $4,000, Ben mused. You can tell the difference between class and flash, Ben continued his thought. Never thought Mo would find us in Little Rock, Arkansas. Ben and Retta had left Van Buren, driving through small country towns to Little Rock. The trip had taken almost 7 hours because they'd used the back roads and stayed off the main highways. They'd been in Little Rock for 3 days. Ben turned his back on the rough-looking man and quickly went to where a young woman was looking at clothes. He gently took her arm, put her in front of him, and walked her out of the store. The man in the cheap suit never saw them leave. They left the Walmart store and hurried to their truck. Guess a cop or state trooper spotted us, Ben said. Mo probably has an in with the St. Louis police, heard about it, and sent some of his guys down here. He glanced at Retta. Sorry, guess we have to stay on the run for a while. Retta was sitting sideways in the seat, looking out the rear window of the truck. A big black car just came out of the parking lot and is following us, she warned. Time to see if Red was right about this truck, Ben replied and pushed his foot down on the accelerator. The old, ratty truck sprang forward as if were a race car, quickly leaving the following car behind. At the first intersection, Ben turned left and then left again and made a final left, which soon brought him up behind the black car. He kept his followers in sight, just long enough to see that they were headed in the opposite direction of his and Retta's motel. Pulling to a stop in front of their room, Ben said, "Let's get our stuff and head west." "Where are we going this time?" Retta asked. She didn't seem upset at the idea of continuing to travel with Ben. "Aren't you worried?" Ben asked. "Why? You've kept us ahead of Mo's men. I've seen some really pretty country, and you're pretty good company when he let yourself wind down a bit. So, why should I worry? Now, where are we going this time?" Ben looked back over his shoulder to answer Retta as they entered their room. "We'll head for San Diego. I know a couple of guys there that can help us get to a safe place in Mexico. We can live like rich people down there with the money we've got." "Sounds like a good plan," a high-pitched voice said from inside the room. "But I don't think you're gonna make it." Ben turned. Two men stood just inside the door. One was Louis, who held his infamous flick blade knife, which really didn't bother Ben that much. But the other guy held a pistol on them. He was the one that motioned Ben and Retta into the room. Louis closed the door behind them and leaned against it. "Shouldn't have cheated, Mo," Louis said with an evil look on his face. "You know, 4 years I've tried to get between you and Mo, but you were always his little favorite, his fair-haired boy that could do no wrong. I raised the boy right," he would say. Then Louis smiled. "I guess he don't think so much of you now." "Let the girl go, Louis. I'm the one that double-crossed Mo." "You think too much of yourself, Stillman," Louis responded. "I didn't come for you. I came for the girl. Mo wants his money, and he wants her working for him." The pale pasty-looking Louis laughed. "Getting to do you is just a bonus for me." No, let's not do anything crazy," Louis ordered as Ben took a step toward him. "Arturo, if he moves again, shoot him in the kneecap." Arturo pointed his weapon at Ben's legs. Everybody stopped at the ringing of a cell phone. Arturo pulled the phone from his inside jacket pocket. "Yeah," Ben could hear the voice on the other end of the call but couldn't understand the words. "When?" Arturo listened and asked, "So we're not gonna get paid?" "Okay, I'm leaving now. See ya." "What?" Louis asked. "Mo's dead."
What?
Joey said that big Swede that runs the families got tired of Mo trying to get into the trade game, so he had him whacked. Cops found Mo sitting in his car with 3 gunshot wounds. He had 2 in the chest and 1 in the back of the head, gangland style. Arturo walked toward the door. "Where do you think you're going?" Louis demanded. Joey said the feds got all Mo's money, got his bank accounts frozen and everything. Something about RICO warrants. Joey said we ain't getting paid for this job, so I'm heading back. Gonna get my stuff and get the hell out before the feds come after me. He took another step. "You ain't going nowhere until we finish here," Louis warned. "Louis, you ain't getting paid either. Don't you understand? It's over. Let's get out of here." Arturo took a couple of steps toward the door. "You ain't leaving," Louis said and raised his knife. "Louis, don't be dumb," Arturo said and pointed his big automatic. "You brought a knife to a gunfight. Now get away from the door." Louis stepped aside. He switched his knife to his left hand, and as Arturo opened the door, Louis pulled a snub-nosed revolver out of his jacket and shot Arturo twice in the back. Then he put another shot into the back of Arturo's head. Just like you said, gangland style. It gave Ben a chance to rush Louis. As he got close, Ben grabbed Louis, knocked the gun to the floor, and pulled the smaller man into a bear hug. Ben roared and lifted Louis into the air, holding him by the neck. Ben roared again, moved his hands and broke Louis' neck. You could hear the snap from across the room. The big man took 3 steps backward to the wall and slid down to the floor. "Ben!" Retta yelled in alarm. She rushed to him and knelt at his side. That's when she saw Louis' knife sticking at angle out of his midsection. Retta grabbed a pillowcase from the nearby bed and used it to put pressure on the wound around the knife. "Oh, Ben," she said with tears running down her face. "Looks like we finally solved your problem, Retta," Ben said. He put a bloody hand to her cheek. "You don't have to run anymore." Ben closed his eyes and slid over on his side. "No, you don't," Retta said as she dialed 911. "You're not getting rid of me that easy, mister." In the distance, Retta heard the siren from the ambulance. Mo Farrell's murder was determined by the FBI and the St. Louis Police Organized Crime Division to be retaliation for Mo stepping on the big boy's toes. No charges were ever brought, as other than the body, there was no evidence linking a person or persons to the crime. Mo's small-time gang deserted the sinking ship and left the city. Those that didn't were rounded up and charged with various crimes. Ben's wound, while serious, wasn't life-threatening. The knife blade had missed vital organs, so the biggest problem had been the puncture and blood loss. The hospital did emergency surgery to close the wound. The first time the nurses got him up to walk around, he signed himself out of the hospital against doctor's orders. "No need to be a sitting target, even if Mo is gone," Ben told Retta. "Some of the guys might not be smart enough to realize that now they wouldn't be paid to off us." The next 6 weeks, Ben and Retta made a tour of the small towns and communities in central Arkansas and then back up into southern Missouri, resting for a day or two when Ben needed. He had been a city boy all his life but found he enjoyed the tree-covered hills, lakes, and rivers of the country. He also liked the slower, laid-back pace. "Where to now?" Retta asked as she and Ben checked out of the small motel in Conway. I've checked with a couple of people I trust in St. Louis and the heat is off, Ben answered. Guess it's time to take you back home. Why? Ben was surprised at the question. I thought you'd want to get back to your life. Go on with your schooling and your teaching. The bench seat in the truck allowed Retta to slide over next to Ben. I could have gone home 6 weeks ago, but I'd rather stay with you. I can teach just about anywhere we decided to go. She took Ben's hand and leaned into him. The smile on Ben's face lit up the cab of the truck. I was hoping you'd feel that way, he said, because I don't want to be apart from you either. He put his arm around Retta, pulled her closer, and put his hand on Retta's cheek. He kissed her. It was several minutes before Ben started the truck. You didn't answer. Where to now? Retta repeated her question. Back to St. Louis. Ben saw the disappointment on Retta's face and quickly added, We'll get the rest of your clothes and anything else you don't want to leave and then head over to my place. There are things I want to take with us. Then we'll find a place to live. You don't want to stay in St. Louis? Retta asked. If you want to stay, we will. But I'd rather find a place that not so many people know what I used to do for a living. Or so many that can connect me to Mo. Ben looked thoughtful for almost 30 seconds, while Retta waited for him to continue. Mo had a lot of enemies. I mean, look what happened to him, and I am, or was, one of his chief lieutenants. Some might decide a little payback is in order. No, I'd like to leave all that behind me. Whither thou goest, I will go. Whither thou lodgest, I will lodge. Retta gave Ben a big smile. The next several minutes were spent doing more interesting things than talking. Finally, Retta said, Start the truck, Ben. We'll never get moved if we sit here all day. 9 hours later, Ben parked in front of his apartment. They had already been to Retta's place and were going to spend the night at Ben's. Early the next morning, as Ben finished putting the few possessions he wanted in the truck, a big black Lincoln Town car pulled in. Ben knew it belonged to Bjorn Gustafsson, the head of the major St. Louis crime family, and the man that had killed Mo Farrell. Get back into the apartment, Ben ordered Retta. She looked at the big black car. She had learned to trust Ben, so she didn't hesitate and went quickly inside. Ben opened the driver's door and stood behind it. He reached under seat and pulled out his .357, holding the big pistol at his side. Ben also made sure the Colt .45 was loose in its holster in the small of his back. Then he waited for someone to get out of the town car. The driver of the car came around to the back door and held it open. Bjorn Gustafsson slowly got out of the car and faced Ben. The man sure don't look like a mobster, Ben thought. If you looked in a dictionary under Swede, his is the picture you'd see. Gustafsson was about 6 feet 3 inches with a muscular build and blonde with a very light complexion, which made his cold blue eyes stand out. Those eyes are dead-looking, Ben continued his thoughts. Wonder what he wants. Mr. Stillman? I am Bjorn Gustafsson. Your previous employer and I had a slight disagreement. Gustafsson gave Ben a humorless smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. And now it seems you are without a job? Looks that way, Mr. Gustafsson. I hope you're not here to continue your vendetta against Mo or his people. No, that's not why I'm here. Gustafsson gave Ben another smile. But what if I were? Ben slowly raised the .357, but he didn't point it at anyone. I believe I'd have to take issue with you, sir. Gustafsson motioned for his driver to relax. Take issue in what way? He was still smiling. I'd have to shoot you where you stand, Mr. Gustafsson. The smile disappeared for a few seconds, but then returned. Well then, it's a good thing I'm not here to continue the vendetta, as you call it. Just the opposite, actually. Sir? Ben was puzzled. From everything I've heard and can find out, you were a valuable employee for Mr. Farrell. You did your job discreetly and were usually successful. Unlike that fellow Louis. Do you know what happened to Louis? I don't want him working for me, and I think it would be best if he left town. Louis won't bother you, Mr. Gustafsson, Ben answered. He smiled and added, and he won't be coming back to St. Louis. Are you sure? Last I heard he was looking for you, and a Miss Johnson. He found me, and yes, I'm sure Louis won't be coming back. Gustafsson looked at Ben with a new interest. This young man is formidable and will make a valuable addition to my business, Gustafsson thought. I've come to offer you a position with my company, and what would I be doing for your? I've decided to take over Mr. Farrell's interest, now that he can no longer run them. I feel you would be a good candidate to run that side of my business, seeing as you know all of the late Mr. Farrell's customers. Ben returned the smile and shook his head. He turned and plainly laid his pistol on the seat of the truck. I've retired, Mr. Gustafsson. Didn't like the job much anyway. Only did it out of loyalty to Mo. You know my story in connection to Mo? The man nodded and Ben continued. Now that he's gone, I can go on to other things. Pity, Gustafsson said. I think we could have a mutually profitable relationship. Ben stepped from behind the door and walked toward the mob boss. The driver tensed, but Ben smiled at him and shook his head. He stopped close to Gustafsson. I can't advise you on most customers, but I can do something better. He turned and called to Retta. Han, bring my laptop, would you please? Retta quickly brought the computer, and Ben motioned to give it to Gustafsson. I've kept records all these years. They're on the laptop, mostly in spreadsheets. The password is Behrman. Gustafsson took the laptop and passed it to his driver. And how much do you want for this information, Mr. Stillman? Consider it a token of my respect and appreciation for not continuing the vendetta. The man nodded, motioned to his driver, and got back into the town car. Ben watched as it drove away, and then said to Retta, let's get out of here. She ran out with the last duffel bag, threw it into the bed of the truck, and climbed into the cab. Who was that, and what did he want? That was the man who disposed of Mo Farrell, and he wanted me to go to work for him. Ben paused for a dramatic effect and said, I turned him down, told him I was retired. Ben and Retta returned to Poplar Bluff, making it their base of operations for almost a year. Retta finished her schooling and got her teacher's accreditation, while Ben basically took it easy. He said he was looking for a business opportunity, but while Retta was in school, he spent most of his time exploring the countryside. He tried to rent a separate apartment for Retta, but she refused. I'm going to be with you all the time anyway, so why waste the money on a second apartment? I can't live with you like roommates, Retta, Ben admitted. I couldn't promise to be a gentleman all the time. So who's asking you to do something dumb like that? She replied and flopped down on his lap. Her kiss was all the explanation Ben needed. While visiting nearby Lake Wapapello in the small town with the same name, Retta found out that the community needed a teacher. She applied and was offered the position. She and Ben decided to move to the small town. The commute from the bluff was about 20 miles, but much of it was on secondary roads. During the spring to fall periods, it wouldn't present a problem, but it wasn't unheard of for that part of Missouri to get snow and sometimes ice storms during the winter. Ben and Retta took a trip to Van Buren and got married in the rotunda of the Carter County Courthouse. Red Sinclair was enlisted as the best man. He and his wife, Shirley, were also the witnesses. It was a very small reception held at the corner drugstore with the soda fountain. There were a couple of presents to open, which surprised Ben and Retta. From Red, Ben got a fishing and hunting license that was good for 2 years. Retta received a handmade quilt from Shirley. Just the thing to cuddle up with your man on those cold Missouri nights, Shirley advised. There was a third present that was surprisingly heavy. Ben ripped off the wrapping paper and saw a beautiful wooden box. Inside the box were 12 1-troy-ounce gold bars and a note. Congratulations on your wedding. The information you provided has been most helpful. Please accept this as my wedding gift to you. The note was signed, Bjorn Gustafsson. Gold is about $1,600 an ounce, Ben said, surprise in his voice. These are worth nearly $20,000. That last duffel bag that Retta had long ago put in the truck had contained a substantial sum of money, over $150,000. Ben's life had consisted of working and not much more for the last 5 years, so he had saved most of his salary and bonuses. The wedding gift, along with the money from the duffel, enabled Ben and Retta to buy a business. With help from Red, who knew the company men for Phillips Petroleum in southern Missouri, Ben bought the only service station in a 20-mile radius of Lake Wapapello. The station also had a marina directly on the lake to service boats. Again, with help from Red, Ben hired 2 young men to help run the marina and service station. He was following in Red's footsteps in that he could either close his business when he and Retta wanted to get away, or at least have someone else run it for him. I'll make a fisherman and hunter out of you yet. I might even get you to like camping, Retta said as she sat down in her husband's lap. Fishing and hunting, yes, Ben replied. But not camping. My idea of roughing it is a hotel with no room service. It's only been a year since we got married and moved to the lake. Just give me time to work on you. Retta smiled as Ben ran his hand over her stomach, pregnant with their first child. Besides, our son will want to go camping. I'll make sure of that. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.